going to read to you is the first verse in Hebrews 11. This is what Germs defined for us last week, okay? So it says, "Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen," okay? So we looked at that last week, and we looked at Cain and Abel and how one offering was accepted by faith and one offering was not, and we saw how that kind of played out. Tonight, we're going to jump around because I'm going to be talking about Gideon, someone who's mentioned later on. He's not like the next one. We're going to jump around in Hebrews 11. But Gideon is the story of one man who rallied 300 others to take on an army of 100,000. And it's a really cool story because they actually decimate them completely. So with something like that, you would think that Gideon is this mighty hero, and him being listed inside of here as one of the heroes of faith, he is a hero, but we're going to look at his story because it's not really cool all the way through. Gideon is full of doubt. Over and over again, he doubts God, and we're going to look at why that's okay. Okay? Luke, you have a question?
How many others does he say?
At the end of the final battle, he has 300 soldiers with him. Against about 130,000. Yeah, no, that's why you'd think that it wouldn't work, but it does. So don't worry about it. We'll talk about it. So first thing I want to do, though, is talk about what doubt is, because we have defined faith. So now let's talk about doubt. So you know the word. What is it? How would you define doubt? Haddon.
Not believing in something.
Not believing in something?
Yeah,
So if I said you doubt fairies exist, that means you don't believe in them?
Yeah.
But you kind of might? No, you just absolutely don't. Okay, Micah.
When I think of doubt, I think of like someone saying that this is gonna happen, and then people like they think it's not. Like they doubt it's gonna happen.
Right. So someone says it will, and the others just don't think it will? Mm-hmm. Okay. Nora?
It's like not trusting something, like not believing it, that's what they were saying.
Yeah. So it's kind of like that. You want to try to add something to that, Aaron?
Like saying like, oh, I doubt that package is gonna come, but you kind of still believe it
Right.
will come, but like you doubt it.
Yeah, like you have a little bit of hope that it's going to happen, but you're like resigned that it's not.
Yeah.
Like, I doubt my package is going to come today. There's no way, Like, yeah, that's a really good example. Like, it's possible, but it's not likely. So I actually really like the definition that doubt is given. So the actual definition, if you look it up, is doubt is a lack of conviction or feeling uncertain about something. And that's really cool because when we defined faith, the second part of that is the conviction of things not seen. So faith is a conviction that things unseen are true, and doubt is a lack of conviction. And it doesn't matter if you can see it or not, you can still have doubt in that. So when we talk about doubt, there is doubt all over the place. I don't know about you guys, but certainly I've doubted packages are going to come on a certain day. But other than that, doubt is a really prevailing thing just in life. So I want you guys to think for a second. Have you guys experienced doubt recently in any way? Like maybe you were having a conversation and someone said something that you just couldn't believe, so you doubted them. Or maybe you thought your parents were going to, might do something, but you kind of doubted it. Anyone have any stories of doubting something? What do you think? Haley.
Yesterday, I doubted that my mom was gonna take me out to Chinese food.
But she did?
Yeah.
Nice. I'm jealous.
It was my birthday, so of course she did.
Oh, happy birthday.
Maybe.
Okay, that's good. Anyone else? What do you think? Anyone have experience with doubt? Jeremiah.
Earlier when we were playing Sharks and Minnows, I started going and then I saw Luis was targeting me and I was trying to get around him, but it wasn't working out very well and I doubted that I would be able to reach the other side.
Did you reach the other side?
No, I did not.
No. So sometimes they turn out to be true and sometimes they don't. Zach?
Well, just a second ago, I doubted I could remember anything I doubted.
Nice. Okay. Luke, last one.
Sometimes I doubt that I'll get good grades,
Ooh.
but I end up passing most of the time.
Most of the time. I like that. So your grades kind of depend on how much you study and how hard you work, But there's still, you don't study, you don't work. But for most people, they study and they work to get good grades. But there's still some doubt there, okay? One of the things that I hated was that I'm awful at predicting how good I'm going to do in a test. Like when I take a test, if I feel good about it, I end up with like a D. If I feel bad, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to pass this. I get like an A. I don't get it. Like I feel confident and then it bombs and then I'm like, oh, I have no idea and it works. So doubting like that, I think makes a lot of sense. I think that's really relatable. So what I want to talk about tonight is doubt in general, and specifically doubt in God and his word, because we're going to look at Gideon and how much he doubts, and yet he is still here in Hebrews chapter 11. So Micah, I'm going to have you read for us first, but I'm going to give you a little bit of background. Okay, Judges is a book where you can pretty much pick up anywhere, and Israel is in a cycle of either obeying God and things are going well, or like they're rebelling and they're about to go well, or Israel is worshiping false gods and then they're about to be punished, or like they're in slavery or something like that. Right now, Israel is suffering at the hands of the Midianites. They are a group of people that have pretty much demolished Israel. Most of Israel is living in the caves. They have no food. They have no livestock, because every time the crops come in, the Midianites come down and they take everything. So the Israelites are basically have been starving for the last 7 years, barely getting by, afraid, and they just called out to God to save them. So let's pick up right there. Go ahead.
Now the angel of the Lord came and sat under the terebinth at Orphan, which belonged to Joshua, the Abzerite, while his son Gideon was beating out wheat in the winepress to hide it from the Midianites. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, "The Lord is with you, O mighty man of valor."
Yeah, keep going. You're doing great.
And Gideon said to him, "Please, my Lord, if the Lord is with us, why then has all this happened to us? And there are all his wonders, deeds that our father continued to us, saying, Did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt? But now the Lord has forsaken us and given into the hand of the Midian."
Okay, pause right there in verse 14. So this is our first introduction to Gideon, okay? He is at a wine press threshing wheat, which is not where you do that because it's made for wine. So they're hiding, they're trying to get as much food as they can. It's not working very well. The first thing that we see about Gideon is his response to the angel of the Lord. The angel of the Lord greets him and says, "O mighty man of valor," okay? He is coming to him, and Gideon's like, no, dude, if God is even real, then why did he allow this to happen? Why are the Midianites here? What about the great deeds that happened? What if, what when, why this? Gideon's first response, the first thing that we see about him, is questioning whether God is there, and if God is there, then why is this stuff happening? Okay? It's been about 7 years that the Midianites have been oppressing them, okay? 7 years of hunger, of fear, of just worry that you're going to be raided and killed any day. And so Gideon is upset, and he also really doesn't seem to take God at his word. You got the angel of the Lord here coming to talk to him. So let's see how that goes. Keep reading to verse 16.
Then the Lord turned to him and said, "Go in this might of yours, and save Israel from the hand of Midian. Do not I send you?" And he said to him, "Please, Lord, how can I save Israel? Behold, my clan is the weakest in
Manasseh.
and I tell the least in my father's house." And the Lord said to him, "But I will be with you, and you shall strike the Midianites as one man."
Okay. So the angel says, go, do this thing. And Gideon, again, his response is, no, not me. My clan, right, the clans of Israel, my clan's the weakest, and I am the weakest in my father's house. Gideon has no faith in God and no faith in himself. He is a man that is full of doubt. And yet, God wants to use him. He comes to this man who is full of doubt, and he tells him that you are going to go save Israel. And his response is, no, not me. And the angel's like, yes, it is you. And so Gideon goes on and he says, okay, if I found favor, then wait here just a second and basically give me proof. This is what Gideon is going to ask for again and again. Because he is a man of doubt, he's going to ask for proof from God. Probably the story that you know of Gideon is about the fleece. Okay? We're going to look at that. But first, before we even get to that, he's going to look for a sign from the angel that is talking to him right here. And that's going to be Haley. Go ahead.
And he said to him, if now I have found favor in your eyes, then show me a sign that it is you who speak with me. Please do not depart from here until I come to you and bring out my present and set it before you. And he said, I will stay till you return. So
Gideon
went into his house and prepared a young goat and
unleavened
cake from an
ephah
of flour. The meat he put in a basket, and broth he put in a pot, and brought them to him under the terebinth.
You're good.
Presented them, and the angel of God asked to him, take the meat and the unleavened cake and put them on this rock, and pour the broth over them. And he did so. Then the angel of the Lord reached out the tip of the staff that was in his hand and touched the meat and the unleavened cakes, and fire sprang from the rock and consumed the meat and the unleavened cakes, and the angel of the Lord vanished from his sight.
Okay. So Gideon makes a meal. He brings it out to the angel, and the angel says, put this here, put this there. And then he takes his staff, he touches the meat, it bursts into flames, is consumed, and the angel vanishes instantly. Okay, this is a miraculous occurrence that if it happened before you, I'm guessing this would, help your faith be stronger, right? If you saw an angel burn something up simply by touching it and then vanish instantly, would that help you with your faith in God? I mean, I probably would. But for Gideon and for some people, like me, we are doubters, okay? For myself, I have always been someone who has struggled with faith just in God and in His Word. It's been something that has always been hard, to know that God is there when I can't see Him, when I can't really talk to Him like I'm talking to you, when I can't always feel Him. It's really easy for me to doubt. And that's what Gideon is going to do. Even right after this, we're going to see that he is not yet convinced that God is on his side, because God is going to tell him to go do something, and he's going to not do it exactly the way he's supposed to. Because even though he saw this miraculous sign, he still is not convinced, and he still harbors doubt. And he's going to continue to show that doubt, and we're going to look at that a couple more times. But what I want you to hear from me tonight is that doubt is not a sin. Failing to act when God calls you is, but doubting is not. Some people are gifted with the spiritual gift of faith, where they find it really easy to believe in God all the time and do exactly what he says, and they get that feeling, they get that motivation to just do what God calls them to do. I am not one of those people, and perhaps you're not either. Doubt is something that comes really naturally to me. If I was in Gideon's shoes, I could probably convince myself over a period of time that what I saw was a dream, or it wasn't real, or something along those lines, because I am just someone who doubts. But doubting is not a sin. And we see that throughout all of the Bible. So, Zach. Read. Go ahead.
Now Thomas, one of the 12, called the twin, was not with them when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see in his hands the marks of the nails, and place my fingers in the mark of the nails, and place my hand into his side, I will never believe."
Okay, doubting Thomas, right? Someone that is very famous for the doubt that they had. But Jesus doesn't tell him that he was doing an awful thing. When Jesus does meet up with Thomas, he gives him a gentle rebuke, and he blesses those who can believe without having to see, with that faith. Okay? Haddon.
And let the one who is in the field not turn back to take his cloak. And lest the women who are pregnant or those things of nursing infants in those days.
Hold on. You in Mark 16?
Yes.
Then maybe I gave you the wrong passage. We'll come back to that in just a second. Alicia. So, Alicia, what we're reading is... let me double check. So, Jesus appeared to a group of people after he was resurrected in Matthew, right? He talks to people, and here we're going to see that even after he has been resurrected and he comes back, there are still people who doubt. Go ahead and read your verse, Alicia.
The 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. Where they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted.
Okay. So there's a group of people and Jesus is there. Jesus is with these people after he has come back from being dead, and it says that some have doubted. Haddon, I gave you the wrong verses. Will you read for me? Wait. No?
Yeah, it's Mark 16 where it talks about Mary seeing.
Yeah. Okay. So,
He's there.
okay. Go ahead and read 9 through 13 for me again.
Okay. Now when he rose early on the first day of the week, he appeared first to Mary Magdalene, from whom he had cast out 7 demons. She went and told them those who had been with him, as they mourned and wept. But when they heard he was alive, and they had seen it, they would not believe it. After these things, he appeared in another form unto them, and they were walking into the country. And they went back and told the rest, but they did not believe them.
Okay, so you've got people trying to tell others that Jesus has come back, but they don't believe them. Again and again, we see that even people that have experienced Jesus one-on-one after his death with his miracles, there are people that still doubt. And that's because doubting is just easier to do than having faith. Having faith is really hard. And it's not something that's easy for all of us. So let's read what happens next in Gideon. So we're going to jump through this really quick. So who's got Nora? Go ahead and read your section.
The same night the Lord said to him, "Take a second bull from your father's herd, the one 7 years old. Tear down your father's altar of Baal and cut down the Asherah pole beside it. Then build a proper kind of altar to the Lord your God on top of this height. Using the wood of the Asherah pole you cut down, offer the second bull as a burnt offering." So Gideon took 10 of his servants and did as the Lord told him. But because he was afraid of his family and the townspeople, he did at night rather than in the daytime.
Okay. Gideon is still afraid even right after he met this angel of the Lord and saw this miraculous thing. And God tells him to go do something, and it says Gideon did it at night because he was still afraid. Okay? He doubted that God was going to protect him if he did this during the day. Gideon was still full of doubt. Next, Luke.
Then Gideon said to God, "If you will save Israel by my hand, as you have said, behold, I am laying a fleece of wool on the threshing floor. If there is dew on the fleece alone, and it is dry on all the ground, then I shall know that you will have saved Israel by my hand, as you have said." And when it was so, when he rose early the next morning and squeezed the fleece, he wrung enough dew from the fleece to fill a bowl with water. Then Gideon said to God, "Let not your anger burn against me. Let me speak just once more. Please let me test just once more with the fleece. Please let it be dry on the fleece only, and on all the ground let there be dew." And God did so that night, and it was dry on the fleece only, and on all the ground there was dew.
Okay. So Gideon is asking for another sign. This is like one day after he met with the angel of the Lord. And he's asking God, if you're really going to use me, would you do this little magic trick for me? Would you do this little party trick so that I know that you're going to use me? It's again, his doubt is coming out because Gideon just wasn't sure. He was scared. We know that he didn't think much of himself. He doubted his ability. He doubted that God was there. And he doubted that God wanted to use him to save Israel. But again and again, God is going to have the patience to show Gideon what he wants and what he needs to see to get him moving onwards. So Gideon asks for the fleece magic trick, or whatever you want to call it. And Gideon is finally convinced. He sends out messengers, and they rally together. So the way the story goes is Gideon gets about 30,000 troops together. But God says, that's too many people. If you win with that many, yeah, you guys could become prideful and say, we did it because we were stronger. So God's like, we're gonna trim this down. And they get down to 300 soldiers with Gideon. So 300 against 130,000, right? If they win that, that's clearly God doing that for them. But even up, yeah, Luke.
30,000 is still not that much.
No, it's not. But God says, like, you could potentially say if you won, then it was by pride. Because God is going to let them win. Like, he's going to win this for them. And if they won with 30,000, it's, realistically, sure, there's no way they could. But with 300, God is saying there's no way that you can't see that I'm the one doing this. So Gideon still needs one more encouragement, though. Even after all of this, he's not quite ready. So, Emma, go ahead and read your section. Let's see the last encouragement that Gideon needs.
During the night, the Lord said to Gideon, "Get up, go down against the camp, because I am going to give it into your hands. If you are afraid to attack, go down to the camp with your servant Purah and listen to what they are saying. Afterward, you will be encouraged to attack camp." So he and
Purah, yeah.
his servant, went down to the outpost of camp, the
Midianites.
Midianites,
You got it.
and all
Amalekites.
Amalekites, and all the other eastern people has settled in the valley because locusts. The camels could no more be counted than the sand on the seashore. Gideon arrived just as a man was telling his friends his dream. "I had a dream," he was saying. "A round loaf of barley bread came tumbling into the Midianite camp. It struck the tent with such force that the tent overturned and collapsed." His friend responded, "This can't be nothing other than the sword of Gideon, son of Joab, the Israelite. God has given the Midianites and the whole camp into his hands." When Gideon heard the dream and its interpretation, he bowed down and worshipped. He returned to the camp of Israel and called out, "Get up! The Lord has given the Midianite camp in your hands."
Okay. So, right that night before they go into battle, God says, I want you to strike them now. But if you're still afraid, take your servant and go down and listen. And the next verse, Gideon takes his servant and goes down and listens to the dream. Okay, he is still frightened and he is still doubting that God is going to actually deliver them and use them. But he hears this dream and then he is emboldened. And we're not going to read the rest of it, but I encourage you to go back and just read the whole story of Gideon because it's really cool. But what happens next is they surround the camp and they just cause a massive amount of chaos, and God intervenes and the Midianites just slaughter themselves in the chaos. And then they run, they chase them down, and they completely eliminate the entire army. 300 people take on an entire army.
Did anyone in Gideon's army die?
Not as far as I know. It's possible, but it was a complete rout. God just gave them into their hands. And it's amazing. And right up until the very battle itself, when they're going down, Gideon is still full of doubt and fear. Doubt that God is going to use him, doubt that God is there, doubt in his own ability, doubt in this group of 300 people taking on an army. But at no point does Gideon stop acting. And that's what you've got to remember. Because doubting is natural. For a lot of people, we do it just all the time. We have to fight that urge. The way that we fight doubting God is by knowing his word. When we read God's word, when we are reminded of it, when we know what God has done and what God has done for us, we can live out that faith. Connor, read your section.
And Jesus said to him, "If you can, all things are possible for one who believes." Immediately the father of the child cried out and said, "I believe, help my unbelief."
Okay, so there's a father asking Jesus to heal his daughter. And Jesus says, if you think I can do it, then I can. And the father says, I believe, but help my unbelief. Because this guy knew that he was still doubting. He's believing in Jesus, who is in front of him, to heal his daughter that's far away, something that's never happened before. And he says, God, I believe, and I want to believe more, and help me with that. I want this to be the rallying cry of those of us who doubt. If you ever doubt God, just cry out for more faith, because God is there to help. We doubt at times. I am a doubter all the time, but Jesus will help us not live on that doubt. He'll help us live out faith instead through that. Micah.
In school, my teacher said that there was a story about a Roman or something, and then they came up to Jesus and asked him to kill someone or something, and then he said, "I'll come," but he said, "No, just say a word."
Yep.
And then Jesus said that he has never seen such faith in all of Israel.
Yeah. That's a really cool story. That's a great example of faith, because that guy was a general and he tells Jesus he understands how that works. And just say the word and my person is healed. And that's a great example of faith. And that's one of the really amazing things about faith, is it can do awesome things. We see incredible works like that. We see the story of Gideon, that even through his doubt, he acted in faith and he saved his nation and brought about peace. So that's what I want you guys to take away. Through your doubt, act on faith and cry out for more if you need it. Let's pray and be done.